Have you ever stopped to think that what a kid does in a sandbox could actually send ripples through the global economy? I know, it sounds like a bit of a stretch, right? But today, we're going to connect those dots. So let's dive right in and see how a child's most basic activity actually scales up to impact the entire world.
So let me start by asking you a really simple question. Just think about it for a second. When you look at a child, what is their number one job? What is the one thing they are fundamentally meant to do?
Yep, it's that simple. To play. Now, to us adults, that might seem kind of frivolous, just fun and games. But from a developmental standpoint, play is the most serious and important work a child can possibly do. And that idea, it's the foundation for everything else we're about to talk about.
All right, so let's start small. Let's zoom way in and look at this whole thing from the perspective of just one child. And to really get this, we're going to lean on what the child development experts, people at places like UNICEF, have to say.
So what you're seeing here is a redefinition of play. It's not just a pastime, it's the actual process of learning. Think about it. When a kid is building a tower with blocks, they aren't just stacking things. They're running a little physics experiment on gravity, balance, and cause and effect. Or when they're playing make-believe, they're really developing super complex social and emotional skills.
And you can see right here how those early games translate into real, lifelong skills. Creativity isn't just for artists, it's what an engineer needs to solve a really tricky problem. The collaboration you learn in a simple game, that becomes the teamwork that's absolutely essential in any modern office. Play is literally building the blueprint for a capable, well-adjusted adult.
Okay, so we get how vital play is for a single person. But now let's pull the camera back. How does this idea scale up to a whole country? How do you take these principles and build an entire national strategy around them? For a great case study on this, we're going to take a look at South Korea. And that's really the multi-billion-dollar question, isn't it? It's one thing for us to say, yeah, early development is super important, but it's a whole other challenge for a government to actually structure its society around that idea. How do you make it official? Well, South Korea's system gives us a really clear picture. Their whole educational journey is very structured. And look at where it begins, formally with kindergarten. They see it as the absolute critical first step. By making early childhood education the foundational rung on this whole national ladder, they are systematically and intentionally investing in the very skills that are born from play. That's how they build their future generations.
Okay, time for one final zoom out. We went from the child to the nation, and now we're going global. Why would giant international organizations like the OECD care so much about what's happening in a kindergarten classroom? Well, as it so often does, it all comes down to money.
I mean, this quote from the OECD really says it all. Pay attention to the words they use here. Effective public policies, prosperous societies. They're not talking about this like it's some nice social program. They're framing it as a high-yield investment strategy. This is the language of economics, of building a richer, stronger, and fairer country.
And here's the hard number that makes every economist and policymaker sit up and pay attention. For every single dollar that's invested in good early childhood programs, the return to society can be as much as $9. That is a massive, massive return on investment. You'd be crazy not to take that deal.
So where does that incredible return actually come from? Well, it's not magic. It comes from these key areas. For one, you get a more skilled, more productive workforce down the line. That's a huge win. Plus, providing childcare means more parents, and especially women, can join the workforce, which gives the whole economy a boost. And maybe most importantly, kids who get a strong start tend to be healthier and need less help from social programs later in life. That saves the government a ton of money in the long run. So we've seen the whole journey, right? We started with a single kid playing, we zoomed out to a nation's system, and we ended with a global economic reason for why it all matters. Let's tie it all together with three main takeaways.
First, for the child, play isn't just fun. It's the essential work of building the entire foundation, the cognitive, the social, the emotional, that they're going to stand on for the rest of their lives.
Second, for the nation. When you take those ideas and build a real system around them, like South Korea does, you're not just hoping for a smart population. You are actively and deliberately creating a more capable and innovative society.
And finally, for the world. Putting money into early childhood isn't an expense, it's an investment. And it's probably one of the smartest economic moves a country can make, one that drives prosperity and fairness that benefits everyone in the long run. So we end on this thought. The evidence is pretty overwhelming. That line connecting the sandbox to the stock market, it's very real.
So the only question that's left for all of us, for our communities, for our countries, is a simple one. If we know that a child's play literally shapes our future, are we actually investing in it like we believe it?